If you've ever heard people talk about Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando and thought, wow, that sounds really cool, but where do I even start? You're not alone. Every year, this event generates a ton of speculation. All different kinds of information all coming at you at once. And if you're new to it, it can sound like total chaos. But here's the secret. HHN follows a very predictable rhythm. And once you see that rhythm, the rumor mill suddenly starts to make a whole lot more sense. Let's take a look. Spec Maps, podcast rumors, Reddit theories, construction photos for months. This is what the Halloween Horror Nights information ecosystem looks like. Just a swirling mess of clues and guesses. But once you understand the pattern, the chaos starts to organize itself. Because Halloween Horror Nights isn't just an event, it's basically a year-round conversation. And once you know where you are in the calendar, everything else starts to make a lot more sense. Early in the year, we have rumor season with Spec Maps, the podcast rumors, and Reddit theories. Then in the spring, construction begins. We get to see permits, backstage builds, construction photos. Then by early summer, announcements start rolling out. House reveals, ticket sales, marketing ramps up, and finally, late summer into fall, Halloween Horror Nights itself. Opening night, scare zones, houses, and thousands of people trying to survive it all. Figuratively. Rumor season is where everything begins. This is when speculation really starts to creep up in the community. Some of it comes from insiders, some of it's detective work, and a lot is enthusiastic guessing. If you want to follow along, there's a few places where information tends to crop up first. Spec Maps, Reddit discussions, theme park podcasts, and sometimes even building or trademark filings. So what is a spec map? One of the most famous, long-standing traditions in the HHN community is something called a spec map, speculation map. A spec map is basically a fan-made prediction chart for the entire event. It tries to guess all 10 haunted houses, the scare zones, and sometimes even the shows, months before Universal actually announces anything. But spec maps don't just list houses, they try to predict where each house will be built inside the park. Most Halloween Horror Nights houses appear in a few recurring locations around Universal Studios, Florida. Some go in the sound stages, which are the large production buildings used for film and television. Others are built inside the parade buildings, massive warehouses backstage near Hollywood. And several houses go into what fans call the sprung tents, temporary structures built specifically for the event. Because these locations repeat every year, fans can sometimes guess what's being built just by watching construction activity. Longtime HHN fans will look at a spec map and immediately start arguing about things like, there's no way that IP fits in a tent. This actually came up last year. There was a house that was themed toward a Viking winter. Universal does do cold for cold houses, so it made sense that a winter not wonderland would go in a relatively smaller space. It's easier to keep cool. One of the great things about Halloween Horror Nights is that you can actually choose your level of engagement. If all you want's an official announcement, just follow Universal on Instagram. They'll have every house, every scare zone, every announcement will come there just the same as it comes to everyone. But if you want to follow the speculation cycle as it grows, there's a couple of places you can look. The HHN subreddit is active all year. Sometimes in between cycles, I like to go there and listen to some of the veterans talk about their times in the fog. It's really, really cool. They do house breakdowns. It's just a really great spot to be. YouTube, clearly, is another great place to find information. After you like and subscribe, here you can search for HHN 35 speculation, and you will be greeted with a whole host of options to watch. Eventually, speculation encounters something physical: construction. This is when Universal actually begins building the event. And for people following HHN closely, it can be a lot of fun. Suddenly you have buildings going up, facades appearing overnight, and every spring, fans start pointing out the aerial photos. Construction season is actually when my watching of park vloggers spikes. Because I'm not looking at the new drinks and t-shirts that they're touring. I'm looking over their shoulders for houses and for construction clues that I can add to my repertoire. I like to think that HHN fandom is a bit like Lovecraftian horror. Instead of the notes of a dead professor and an Australian newspaper clipping, we're looking at spec maps and construction permits. Still fun though. If you interact with the community long enough, I promise you will get some things wrong. For example, last year I was convinced that we were going to get a Conjuring house and that there was no way they were going to put Terrifier out in Universal. I was wrong on both counts. Terrifier was awesome, the roaming Art the Clown was even more awesome, and The Conjuring, we could wait for another year. Announcement season. Eventually, Universal does start telling us what's going to be at HHN this year. House announcements begin going up. Marketing ramps up. Tickets go on sale. And the speculation community shifts from detective work to reactions. Usually the first announcement is a major headlining house, often based on big horror franchises. And that first reveal usually kicks off announcement season. But Universal almost never reveals the entire lineup in one go. Instead, announcements trickle through the summer. One house, then maybe another, then a scare zone, then merchandise, then another house. It's a very deliberate drip feed. Fans immediately start to guess what the next house or scare zone will be. Some people celebrate because their predictions were right, and other people will not be as happy because a property that they loved may not have had a house this year. It happens to all of us. I will say this about the speculation community. Just because we know the theme of a house does not indicate that we know the quality of that house. So anyone telling you that this house or that house is total trash has really no basis to stand on. Frankly, the house doesn't even exist yet in its full form. So to be able to automatically gainsay something, it's not helpful. One of my absolute favorite things about this phase is the way the community comes together around different properties. Sometimes a franchise I barely know anything about ends up getting a house, and suddenly the HHN community fills up with fans explaining the lore, sharing theories, and basically giving everyone else a crash course in why that story matters. For example, the only reason I know the name of Freddy Fazbear's Crew is because Five Nights at Freddy became an HHN house. And that's just part of what makes the event so fun. Every year brings new worlds, new monsters, and new stories into the mix. And eventually, all that speculation pays off. All the rumors, the debates, the detective work, it all leads to that same moment. Opening night. Halloween Horror Nights itself. If you've never been, about the best way I can explain it to you is a 500-acre street party with chainsaws, fog everywhere, music, scare actors in the streets, the smell of the food booths, and the haunted houses that bring it all to life, and tens of thousands of guests every night. Opening week has a very specific energy. Everything is brand new, everyone's trying to see every house, and the entire park feels like it's buzzing. This year I'm actually going to miss the event. I went last year, it was one of the best nights of my entire life. This year, we're going to go down for Grinchmas, which I think is going to be outstanding as well. But no worry, because speculation season is always just around the corner. Once you understand the pattern, rumor season, construction season, announcement season, and the event itself, the HHN rumor ecosystem suddenly starts to make a lot more sense. And part of what makes Halloween Horror Nights special is that the event doesn't really begin on opening night. For a lot of fans, it begins the day after. Thank you so much for watching. And if you ever find yourself at Halloween Horror Nights, I hope to see you in the fog.